Hello, I'm Scott Bogey here with Nick Bootma ahead of his fight against Jack Humphries at Cage Warriors 185. How are you doing today?
Yeah, doing well. In the final stages of the training camp, obviously. So, yeah, just dotting the I's, getting ready. Final couple days. I think it's in, what is it, 16 days now? Something like that.
Yeah,
So,
just around 3 weeks away.
right.
Was any part of you a bit surprised about this matchup? Because obviously, you and Jack, you are two of the most up and coming prospects in Case Warriors, and instead of waiting a wee bit down the line for maybe like a title eliminator, you're getting matched up this early in your career.
Yeah, it was very surprising for me. Like you said, I expected this to happen further down the line. But Jack called for this fight, which is great. It
Yep.
was surprising, but I like it, and we took it. So, yeah, but it's surprising.
Exactly. And do you feel like a lot of prospects like yourself, you need to take these challenges when they come? Like you're not gonna shy away from a call out from someone who may have that big following or that big potential. You're just here to fight anyone, anytime, anywhere.
Yeah, it depends. You can play it careful and coast for a little bit, but if you want to get up there with the big guys, you want to put your name out there for the championship. That's the way to go. For sure, you got to establish yourself.
And then in your last fight, it was back in September. What do you feel like has been the biggest change since that fight in terms of your training? Has there been anything you've particularly worked on, or what has been the biggest change?
It's a good one. I think I sharpened up my boxing a lot more. That was the thing I could feel like I could benefit from the most.
Yeah.
Not necessarily what I could improve on the most, but what I could benefit from the most. I feel like I get a lot of power in my hands and finding more ways to access that in the fight. Getting more crafty with it would be very helpful. So that is what I feel like is the biggest change, probably.
And then obviously in that last fight, you were able to get the victory in that first round. You were able to get that, I think it's a rear naked choke you were able to get. It must have felt nice to be able to get that in your organizational debut.
For sure. Yeah. Up until now, my pro career, I've always finished people in the first
Yeah.
round. So yeah, to be able to do it in Cage Warriors as well was a really nice confirmation that I can do it here as well.
And some fighters, so obviously you obviously are wanting that first round finish, but some fighters they do like the longer the fight because you do put so much effort into the training camp to make sure you do sharpen up your tools. Are you a bit like that, or are you just happy to just go out there, get that finish in however long it takes? 1 minute, 2 minutes, however, even if it goes the full 15.
Yeah, honestly, to me, it doesn't matter as much. It's not like I prefer to go out and finish people in the first round.
Yeah.
I don't go into it with that idea necessarily. I just happen to line up that way. But I sure don't mind like a dominant 3 rounds is like you said, you prepare a long time. So just to be able to enjoy that fully is a very nice thing as well. So yeah, it's just whatever happens, happens.
And do you like to take part in the building of that plan, or do you kind of like leave it to your coaches to just decide the best way and then you follow through?
Yeah, I always leave that to my coach, honestly. Yeah. I leave the thinking to him.
And how important is making sure you have that right team surrounding you? Because obviously you have to make sure the gym suits you and your ability, and not if there's a coach that isn't doing very well, or you feel like you are getting a little bit less area and certain focuses, you might need to go out and search for that elsewhere.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's everything, especially for a guy like me who
Yeah.
comes from like a rural part of the Netherlands. There's very few gyms in our country as is at a good level, let alone in the area where I'm at. So even if it wasn't too great, I don't have many options. probably the next best thing I could do is travel like 3 hours a day, which is completely impossible
Yeah.
for me. So,
And
yeah, it's super important.
and how big was it for your gym with Orlando being able to get that title fight last year?
Yeah, it's massive. Seeing spike in interest
Yeah.
from local people, lots of people joining. So it's exciting times for us, and yeah, I definitely see like an trend of more people coming in the future.
And do you feel like this is just the start of the Netherlands MMA? You're now in the next coming years, you're going to see that wave coming in. Also, you did have Overeem in the UFC. You then had De Ridder doing his thing now, but now you're seeing the next wave start to come in more force.
Yeah, definitely. That's actually like the core concept of what our gym was founded on. You know, our gym's called Root, and the idea is that, you know, in a couple of years we can look back and like that's where the root was, you know.
Yeah.
In yeah, our country has a very interesting history in the sport. Obviously, we used to be quite up there, quite involved, especially in the kickboxing. However, we've been left behind in the MMA department a bit, and we're looking to rectify that and become, yeah, you know, a powerhouse again.
And speaking to Orlando before his upcoming fight next week, he says that it's mostly because of the striking difference. You guys, the Netherlands is more focused on the striking in the kickboxing scene, whereas moving into that MMA, it is slightly different. Do you see that as being the case?
Yeah, definitely agree. You know, some things that you also see in like Great Britain, for example, we get left behind in the wrestling a little bit. If you look at the Olympics, for example, there's no Dutch presence. You know, there's not really a possibility to train like wrestling, and even jiu-jitsu is pretty new still in the Netherlands. So yeah, we've been left behind a little bit on that. Obviously, kickboxing's always been going on. But yeah, you see now it's with the whole MMA boom, it's getting more popular, and in the future, I feel like a lot of us will be back up there.
And just next week, speaking about Rome cards for a second, your division, your weight class could be turned upside down after that. Liam Gittins goes out there, gets that victory. That probably seals his deal to that UFC contract, which would then leave that title vacant for someone to come in and step in. You do also have Alexandro, who's just fighting for it. You then have, I think, Maya versus Reese McEwen. They're at Glasgow. You then have the guy who won the prize fighter. You just have a lot of killers in your division. Does that what makes your weight class in particular getting a lot of eyes on it is just due to the amount of killers that are in it?
It's an interesting division to say the least, and I think that the prize fighter tournament also showed like there's a lot of
Yeah.
killers, you know, and you already named few, and let alone the prospects we have in the division. It's yeah, for sure, one of the most, if not the most interesting division out there in Cage Warriors right now. So, with that matchup happening soon, you know, who knows what will happen? It'll be chaos, but it's going to be interesting times for us.
And how would you like to participate in something like that prize fighter tournament that did happen?
The prize fighter tournament. So if it, assuming it will be a similar format, you had to
Yeah.
fight multiple times. That would suit me very well, I think. Especially with my given history of finishing fights quickly. Um, you know, I'm very,
Yeah.
yeah, it's very suitable for me. If you would have had to go like the decision a couple of times, you know, that might be rough, but we'll see. We can get it done. It's a good incentive to finish the fight, obviously.
And
But
then
yeah,
obviously, you did have that professional debut, no, that organizational debut last. The fight before that, you were fighting in LF LFL, the level, I think it's Levels Fight League. How big do you feel like that has been for just Dutch MMA in the sense? Because it does give you guys that platform to go into and get that actual fight experience without having to go out and abroad to go and get that.
yeah, they've really stepped up their game. if you look at it now, it looks super professional.
Yep,
We've had a couple of guys go to Contender Series straight from LFL,
yep.
a handful of them. Somebody in my gym, Dash Makuriel, is also fighting there, and as you may know, a Dutch guy from who came down from the UFC, Jarno
Yeah,
Arends.
errands. Yep.
Yeah, he also been signed there. So yeah, it's a good look, and they're definitely elevating the level of MMA in our country.
Exactly, because not only do you have errands, you also have Tom Breeze, who's fought in the PFL. You have Taylor
Correct.
Sutherland, who fought in Bellator. Do you feel like in the next 2 years, 3 years, it is going to be one of those major, big organizations that are going to bring these people from within Europe to it?
If they keep this trend going, they could for sure head in that direction. You know, they could become like Cage Warriors. Um, Obviously, it's a tough market, but if they keep going the way they're going, then it's a natural progression at this point.
And do you have anything that you like to do after a fight? Like, do you like to go once you get the win, go out for a certain takeaway? Do you like, is there anything that you do normally do after a win?
After a win, mostly just stuff myself. Just eat a whole lot of food, like a criminal amount of food,
So
mostly.
you
Yeah.
like to go the Paddy Pimlet route, just eat as
Yes,
much as you
yeah,
want.
exactly like that. Yeah, you're absolutely crazy.
And what do you make of Paddy? Because obviously there is a lot of people who does criticize what he does. Because I think I read he's like 40 pounds over his fighting weight just now, and you have to get that down for UFC Miami. Do you feel like that is just too much to go over, and he should be a little bit closer to fighting weight naturally? Or what's your view on that?
Yeah, honestly, of course he shouldn't be doing that, but to be fair, he
Yeah.
does do it every time. So, at some point, who are we to tell him like he can't do this if he does it every time? So, if he does it, fair play to him.
And so far in your fights, what has been the toughest one?
The toughest one, it's a good one. Honestly, I haven't encountered much adversity yet
Yeah.
in any of my fights. I haven't like been on the losing end or even on a round. So I hope like this fight will get tested a little bit. But
And
so far it hasn't come to that yet, honestly.
and how do you feel like Jack is going to come into this fight against you? Like, do you feel like it is just going to be a mixture of both standing and the ground? Do you feel like he's just going to stand and trade, get the fight to the ground? What do you feel like his game plan is going to be?
For Jack, I think like we're pretty similar in the way that we approach the fight,
Yeah.
and we'll just like see what is there. That makes this fight very interesting as well, both because we haven't had much adversity in our pro career. It'll be very excited to see how this goes down. So,
And And it must have been nice when this fight got announced. There was a lot of publicity about it just because of the hype. And it must have been good to just being able to see that, to be able to recognize it's not only you, everyone else knows how big of a prospect you are as well.
yeah, it's nice to get that recognition. A lot of people talk about Jack and how big of a
Yeah.
prospect he is. I honestly feel like I'm, quite similar in that regard. And this fight will really, yeah, if I win this, like as I've done before, that'll really cement me as like
Yeah.
the top guy.
And do you feel like that is one of the benefits for MMA in a whole is the fact that one defeat doesn't destroy your career like in other sports like boxing? If Jack loses or you loses, you aren't going to be getting moving that stock down. You are able to build that self back up and get back into that fairly quickly.
Yeah, that's very nice, and people honestly shouldn't put as much
Yeah,
stock in a loss as they do. There's a ton of UFC fighters, greats with multiple losses. Sometimes it takes you get a guy like Charles Oliveira, it takes a while for him to figure it out, but
Yeah.
once he does, he's a top dog. So that is very nice that we have that opportunity as opposed to something like boxing. Um, yeah, I do like that. Yeah.
And do you feel like that is where some people get annoyed with padded records? Because there's people who take these fights, like what you've done against Jack Humphries. They take these big fights, and a loss won't hurt them. They can come back, they can learn. Whereas other people, they're not taking these challenging fights. They're just taking ones they can easily win, get a win on the record to move up quicker.
Yeah, it's honestly at the end of the day, you're kidding yourself. You
Yeah,
know at the end of the day where you stand, and there's a lot of these guys in Cage Warriors as well with records. I'm like, oh, this looks impressive, and you pulled the Tapology, and it has like those little yellow marks, like ineligible for ranking and stuff. There's a lot of that going on. It's very surprising actually, but yeah, at the end, you know.
yeah.
So it's yeah, if you want to test yourself or you want to take the easy road, it's on you.
And obviously with Cage Warriors, they are renowned as being one of the best organizations in Europe. However, the only criticism you could have for them is the fact that they don't really promote the champions against people in their organization fights. Like for lightweight, for example, they've brought Lucas Clayton from North America. I think it might be South, but I think it's North America, who is just coming in and getting the title fight immediately. Whereas you have people like James Power, who is on that fighting streak, who is fighting killers in Cage Warriors already, who probably should be getting that title fight already.
Yeah, I agree with that. Definitely, especially in that case, James Power. For me, that's a shoe in for the title. Yeah, sometimes it just the matchmaking doesn't make much
Yeah.
sense. You don't know what's going on behind closed doors, but yeah, I definitely feel you on that one.
And what do you feel like is for you in 2025? After this fight, as long as you don't get any injuries, are you wanting to stay as active as possible?
Yeah, of course, we'll see. This point, you never know.
Yeah.
I get some plans after the fight. I'm getting married pretty soon, so we'll get that done first, and then we'll see what happens.
No, that's completely fine. Thank you for coming on today. That was perfect. I wish you the best of luck for your fight against Jack, and congratulations on getting married as well, or coming up to get married. Is there anything you're wanting to shout out, or anything else you're wanting to add?
Yeah, just make sure to check out my fight. It's gonna be super exciting. My coach Orlando Prince is fighting the week before at Cage Warriors Rome.
Yeah,
Make sure to check that out as well. And yeah, thank you for having me, Scott. I appreciate it.
thank you very much. Definitely tune in. Definitely got a fight of the year potential.
Thank you, man.